Hey, Mr. Pugh.
Hey, ma'am, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you today. I owe you a little bit more time.
I know, I did too. It was good. It was good. So I am so excited about, I just got off the phone with Mr. Wilson about what he's doing. And I really want to do something to acknowledge his Department of Special Services for taking on this task. You know, the roads are in bad shape. And, you know, the trash is everywhere. It's not just in Lower Richland, it's everywhere. And they usually have the prisoners doing this, but since COVID, they can't come out. And so Mr. Wilson has just taken on this task. And if I call him, he immediately sends his crew in that area for the next day.
That's great.
I mean, he's whatever the constituents are saying, he is on it. So I really want.
Good afternoon.
Hey, is that Allison?
Hey, yes, it's Allison. How are you?
Good, Councilwoman Horatio. I'll get the term straight one day.
We only really have to be formal once we are called to order. Oh,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
5 o'clock. I lost my paper with all my names on it. Trying to see have here.
I know it's me, you, Pew. Oh, there it is. Me, you, Pew, Gretchen,
English.
Peace.
Can I have the other one?
Derek Pugh, Gretchen Barron,
Got
me,
it.
and Peace.
Okay, so we've got 3 of us here now.
Yeah.
Give it just a moment.
Ms. Horatio, I believe everyone's here now.
Okay, thank you, Miss Only. I was scrolling
You're
through
welcome.
pages to see who's here. Okay, welcome everybody. Development and Services Committee. I will call the meeting to order. The second item, should we do a roll call or roll call? Can we do a roll call, Miss Only?
Yes, ma'am. Pugh,
Here.
Horatio,
Here.
Barron,
Here.
English,
Here.
Newton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. These minutes are from our December 17th meeting. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
I read them and they looked fine, so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a little bit different since we not everybody was here from that meeting. So it's been moved and seconded for the approval of the minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask Miss Only to call the roll for approval.
Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton. Motion passes.
Thank
Sorry, I
you.
was trying to vote yes. My hotkeys to unmute did not work as fast as I was hoping they would.
Great. Number 4 is the the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
I have not received any requests for staff for any changes.
Great, thank you. Hearing no changes, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make
Move
a
to
motion to
approve.
approve the agenda.
Great. Second?
Second.
Second.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded to adopt the agenda. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask Ms. Only to call the roll for the adoption of the agenda.
Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes,
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
thanks, everyone. Number 4 on our agenda is the election of the chair. Is there a nomination for chair?
Councilwoman Horatio, if there are no objections, I nominate you.
Thank you, Ms. English. I will accept that nomination. Any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, I'll ask Ms. Only to call the roll on the for the chair.
Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes,
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
thank you all. Continuing on with the agenda, item number 5 are items for action. 5A is to amend the county's current ordinance in order to allow lighting on Broad River Road. These can be, discussion on this can be found, or information on this can be found on pages 13 through 106 of our packet this afternoon. Is there any discussion on this item? Well, I guess, yeah, let's start with, yes, Ms. Newton.
Ms. Horatio, were you going to start with staff comments? Because that's what I was going to.
Yes, I second guessed myself. Yes, is there any information from staff that you would like to present on this item?
Madam Chair, this is Clayton Boyer, Community Planning and Development Director. What I'll speak to is just the staff recommendation. Our recommendation is that for council to, or for the committee and for council to identify a funding source other than the Neighborhood Redevelopment Fund for the provision of street lighting service countywide in accordance with section 21-12 of the County Code of Ordinances. And that section states that the county shall not provide street lighting on any highway, street, or road until such time as sufficient funds are appropriated to provide that service countywide. Staff has a secondary recommendation that the county discontinue paying for street lighting service currently paid for through the Neighborhood Redevelopment Fund until such time as another appropriate funding source is identified. And my staff and I, staff from Planning Services and staff from Public Works, are here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I'll look to council members for questions. And yes, Ms. Newton, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Ms. Horatio. Thank you, Mr. Boyer. I do have a few questions about this. And first, just want to clarify, because I feel like I've heard the ordinance and can interpret part of it 2 different ways. So I know that there are some regulations that say you can't do something unless you can do it for everybody in the county. This sounds to me like you can do it, but you just have to identify a funding source. Can you clarify for me which one of those is correct.
I
If
would
that
actually,
makes sense.
yes, I would probably defer to legal on the interpretation, but our staff's interpretation is that that the street lighting not be provided until sufficient funds have been appropriated, a funding source identified to provide that service countywide.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, was legal or someone else going to comment before I ask my next question?
Ms. Newton, I think what it says is it's about the funding. I don't think it's about doing it for the entire county in general. It's about funding the entire county is available, is the way I read it.
Okay. So then my next questions would be, I'll just ask them all together, is question number one would be, what has determined who gets lighting besides funding? Are there any criteria that say this area we're going to pay for funding, but this area we're not going to pay for funding? And then my second question is, the briefing document on page 15 says that we are currently paying for lighting on Broad River Road. So I was curious to know where we're paying for lighting already there, because the way I'm interpreting this motion is very broad. So I'm trying to understand what the difference is between what we're currently paying for and what is being proposed by this motion, which may be difficult as the original maker of the motion is not on county council, but I did just want to understand what are the standards that say we'll pay for it here, but not there, and then what different area is encompassed in this motion. Thank you.
Ms. Newton, I'm not aware of certain criteria that were established for current lighting that we're paying for. Those were made through various council motions, as is presented in the briefing document. And so I'm not able to speak to the intent of the motion. We are currently paying for certain street lighting on roads on Broad River. But we're not paying for all of, obviously I'm not paying for all of the street lighting that could or would be provided on Broad River.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And we may have this before us, and I know that we have had it presented, the number presented to us, but as I remember, the number to provide lighting for everyone was some astronomical number, and much, much larger than the $35,000 that we have here in our briefing document. So I think that would be a very large project that we would be looking at. Any other comments or questions from council members?
Yes, Ms. Horatio.
Yes, Ms. Barron.
So I just want to tag on to what my colleague, Ms. Newton, was just sharing. I think this is important that if this is going to be an ordinance that we're changing, that it's across the board, and that we have to put some type of criterion in place as to how we're, which streets get the lighting. Is there, even if it's not a criteria, perhaps the need that's being there, it should be addressed, because I can see where the waters could get muddy real fast when we're talking about priority. And then given the costs associated with this project, we were presented with numbers for Broad River Road, but we're being asked to consider a countywide project. So if this is something that we are considering to identify funding, before we can identify funding, I think that it would be helpful to know how much we're looking for, and what, so that we can clearly identify the path that we're going. But we can't, I don't feel comfortable with identifying a funding source if I don't know, 18,000 or 35,000 is a whole lot different from, now I hear Ms. Horatio saying an astronomical number, and as being new to council, I think that's going to be important for us to be able to make a decision as to where we go from here. Thank you.
And I wouldn't want to put staff on the spot. We might not even have appropriate staff here to give us that number, but we did consider it sometime a couple of years ago, and it was just kind of a non-starter at that time. So given discussion, do I see another hand up? Oh, Mr. Malinowski.
Yeah, thank you, Madam.
Apologies, I'm having to scroll through my pages on my phone to do this. So if I don't see you, don't be afraid to speak up.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You touched on exactly what I was going to comment on, which was the astronomical figure. And I didn't know if staff was prepared to give us that we had received before. And if not, that's fine. But I do think, as Ms. Barron says, we really need to know that figure. And I believe that's why we never went any further in the past, was because the figure was very, very large. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Livingston.
I would like for staff to at least look at what some of the other cities and counties are doing regarding lighting. Give us some ideas of what are some possibilities if there's some areas that in our county that absolutely desperately need lighting, and relative to others, I don't know, but let's get some idea of what that might look like and some more information on what that might cost and so forth too, before we decide anything.
Madam Chair?
Yes, is that Mr. Pugh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Pugh.
I would like to make a motion that we defer this until we get more information from staff.
Thank you. Is there a second for that? Oh, Ms. Newton, you have your hand up. Did you have it up from before? Or is this a new hand?
I think I had it up for before, but I will wait and see if there's a second to Mr. Pugh's motion before I try to speak.
Okay. Is there a motion to second for deferral? Or sorry, is there a second for the motion to defer?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Barron seconds it, and Ms. Only that's non-debatable. Ms. Only, will you call the roll to defer this item?
Yes, ma'am. Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is item 5B. Solid waste, Richland recycles events. Information can be found on pages 107 through 111 of our packet. Is there any information that staff would like to share before we get into this item?
Madam Chair, John Thompson, may I speak?
Yes, Dr. Thompson, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all. And good evening to the members of the DNS committee. So this is just a simple request. You all have seen it on the news regarding the amount of litter we have across the county, across the state. And so this is an opportunity. Staff has taken a proactive role in terms of ensuring that we can have some convenient sites for our residents to bring their recyclable items to us. And so this is what you have before us. We don't have to go and pay somebody to use their space. We have the space at the Columbia Place Mall. We'll set up these sites, set up the site throughout the year, and there's opportunity to work with PIO to advertise it and to ensure that we have the greatest amount of participation at each of these events. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. And I will say I have recently had a lot of constituent outreach around trash and such things. I have a question to start us off with. I know we're having the recycling event. Is there intention to help educate folks around this event, just around how to have bulk items picked up? I know that there are sometimes some questions. People are kind of unsure how to effect that. City of Columbia residents will, we just put things out kind of on the curb and the claw machine comes by and picks it up. But some residents might need to know more information about how to get their bulk items picked up.
Absolutely. In fact, Ms. Cindy, I apologize not acknowledging her first. She's our new recycling coordinator. I'm going to defer to her because she's been working behind the scenes and in front of the scenes in ensuring that we're able to get messaging out, working with PIO, getting our message out there on hard copy as well as on social media. So Ms. Cindy, I'll just yield the floor to you so that you can advise the council of such.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. First, yes, a lot of what we're doing is trying to educate people and update our resources so that those resources have more information of what people are looking for so that it's readily available. One of the things that we will be doing at this event, actually, we have one coming up this weekend. If any of you guys are in town, we're actually partnering with Lexington County and City of Columbia in hosting an event at Riverbank Zoo. So this is just kind of an example of those same events that we would be hosting at Columbia Place Mall as well, but would be strictly for Richland County residents. But one of the things that I have been working on is with these events that, yes, we will have items available and also information there that can explain to them what is recyclable either on their curbside, how they can do that, but then also at our recycle centers and for these events as well. One of those things is, I'll just hold up one of these, is that we're going to be handing these out, and this is kind of an abbreviated version of what used to be the Talking Trash book, but this is kind of that quick example of anything that's recyclable in Richland County, and it has information on here about curbside, what you can put in your curbside container, the locations, the drop-off locations, where they can take it and what they can take to each one of those, and also the number to call if there is a bulk pickup, so that people have that information as well. So we will be handing those out to Richland County residents, and then also promoting our app as well, and trying to push a lot of the information. And as Dr. Thompson had said, working with PIO and tackling social media, any which way we can come at it with information to kind of tackle not only, you know, what is important to highlight for them to make it convenient at these events, which is really what the point is. People are just so excited to see these events, which is interesting because they can do the exact same thing every week at any of our drop-off centers. So we want to make sure that we're giving them that information as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I know I have some hands up, so I'll go. I think Ms. Barron was next.
Yes, thank you. And I want to make, I'm not certain if this is the place for this or if you are the correct person. So if it's not, please redirect me. But clean sweeps, you know, we've done the clean sweeps. I know we stopped doing them because of the pandemic. So I have a kind of a two-part question, and that is, where are we? Will we be able to start those soon with clean sweeps? And then earlier, if you were on the call, my colleague, Ms. English, was talking about the trash pickup. So are we in the phase of perhaps looking at something countywide to eliminate some of the waste that we're seeing on around the streets here within the county?
And I will defer that either to Director Maloney or Dr. Thompson.
I do it, Ms. Cindy.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Yes, Dr. Thompson, please do.
Right. To address Ms. Barron's question, actually, this is ongoing. So whether it's clean sweep or whether staff members just out there picking up trash, is ongoing. And so if you have a request, I advise you to get that request to Administrator Brown or to me, and we will route that request to Director Maloney, DPW, and to Mr. George Wilson with Special Services.
So Madam Chair, may I do a follow-up question? And
Please.
So thank you, Dr. Thompson. So with that, is that including the clean sweeps as well?
Yes, ma'am. We don't have any objection at this point. And so whatever your request may be, just send that to us. I know that we're working with Councilwoman Newton to get an event scheduled in, I guess, several weeks or so. So our folks are busy, but I'll just say, if you can just, for everybody, I think this is an educational opportunity. Administrator Brown and I have been in conversation about this numerous of times. that we want to make sure that we get all the resources available. And so we understand that our resources are strapped at times. We'll do everything we can possibly do. Thank you so much, Ms. English, for mentioning about the inmate labor. Because of the pandemic, we don't have those folks to be able to assist us. So that is a huge issue. So we're working with temp agencies to get people in-house to help us to beautify our county. But at the same time, we also want to rely on other resources. So for example, the South Carolina Department of Transportation, SCDOT maintains roads in the county. And so versus us just relying on our assets, let's make sure we lean on the state assets so that they can go out there and we could do a joint effort versus just relying on county assets. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a follow-up question? Sorry.
Yes, Ms. Newton, I believe you were next on the
Mr.
list anyway.
I was, and Dr. Thompson, I guess I just want to be clear, and I apologize for asking a question about something that you just addressed, but my impression that the clean sweep, in terms of what was generally called the clean sweep, where you go to a neighborhood, you set a specific date, they're putting out all the big trash. I was under the impression that those were on hold because of inmate labor. So I know that we were going around picking up trash, but not doing what was formerly known as a clean sweep. So I know you just answered this for Ms. Barron, but I want to make sure that I'm not confused because of a terminology thing. So do you mean what we used to talk about as a clean sweep, which was that intensive in neighborhood, we tell people we're going to be there on Tuesday, put out your old couch, or did you just mean litter pickup? And I hope my question is clear.
Yeah, that's clear. Director Maloney could correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, we're doing these types of efforts. So Director Maloney, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir. Clean sweeps, we suspended those in March when the inmate labor pool evaporated. We can do something if it was a high capacity deal. We did talk about utilizing county staff on different days off, even if it had to be a weekend event where we could put some of those on. So we're looking at that, and I think we've got to have a plan to utilize our staff and the temporary staff that Dr. Thompson mentioned we are using. But it probably, it won't be as robust as we once were until we get that inmate labor staff back.
Thank you. And again, just wanted to be clear, because sometimes there's different terminology and there are different organizations that use the same words. So thank you for clarifying that. So two things. One is I just wanted to take an opportunity to commend the staff. And so thank you, ACA Thompson, Director Maloney, Mr. Wilson. Thank you for just how wonderful and responsive and understanding you have been as we've been trying to deal with an increase in litter all across Richland County. Your team has been absolutely fantastic. So my question regarding this event, which I completely support and I'm ready to make a motion to approve on, is there are two legal documents in our packet, and one of them was a liability waiver for vendors and one is a liability waiver for volunteers. As this is a county event, I'm unclear on who the vendors are and why we need a waiver. And I was just wondering if someone could address that. Thank you.
Ms. Castelluccio has a list of vendors that do provide different services as part of the event. So if you could address those in particular.
Sure. So some of the events, or at the events we have, as you'll know, depending on the events, we'll kind of rotate through what those commodities are that we're looking for. So for instance, we have a collection of electronics. And so we pay, say, Powerhouse, who is our vendor, to come in. They bring in their truck, they bring in their crew, and they set everything up. They collect everything, they put everything back on the truck and get out of Dodge. There are only a few vendors. Most of the time it is us. Say, for instance, if it's tires, then it will be that we just drop a container, and then it's us that services that. That we'll be there to collect it, but then we'll have CWS to come and remove it. So there will be, a limited number, typically one or two at most. The rest of it is all county staff. But that was under recommendation from legal to have, since we are on county property. We also, that we would have those, that liability waiver. if anybody wants to chime in on that one. But the volunteers, I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned as well, because we do partner with a couple of other entities during some of these. For instance, like I said, this one coming up this weekend is with other counties and the city of Columbia. But then, for instance, on just the Richland County ones at the mall, we will still have Keep the Midlands Beautiful, and other small organizations, say for instance like that, or other small partnerships that we have, that they'll join us as part of that, and then they will bring some of the volunteers with them, so we would have them sign as well.
Perfect. That addresses my question. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I thought I saw that Mr. Pugh had his hand up. Mr. Pugh, did you want to speak to this item?
No, ma'am, my colleagues asked the questions. We're good.
Okay, fantastic. Then Ms. Newton, are you ready? Would you like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Only, will you call the roll for this item?
Yes, ma'am. Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. The next item is item 5C, petition to close portion of Old Percival Road and Spears Creek Road. That information is on pages 112 through 117 of our packet. Staff, would you like to give any background on this item?
As I read through this, Madam Chair, one of the things that I noted was Councilman Jackson and Councilwoman Myers were going to have hold community meetings, but they didn't. And these roads haven't been used in a while. I don't know, since COVID is out, that it would be feasible to have a community meeting other than by Zoom. So I can defer to my colleagues to see what they think is best in this regard, because these roads have not been used in a long time.
I'll just ask staff, is there any urgency on this matter? What is the time frame on this one? And are there any risks to not closing this portion of the road?
Ms. Newton, Ms. McLean, I'm not aware of any risk right this second. However, the issue has been ongoing for 2 years. The attorney for these the people that want the road closed had sent a notice to the county 2 years ago, and at that time the committee, upon recommendation of Ms. Myers and Mr. Jackson, had deferred the item for community meetings. However, those never took place. That attorney, Mr. Sanders, had asked that we go ahead and get this back on an agenda because his clients would like to move forward with the road closing. At this time, I'm not aware that it's an emergency, but he does want some action on this. And he hasn't filed his lawsuit, and when he does, we'll have 30 days to answer. I will say that, well, in your packet, you really can't clearly see, but on the road, part of it's already been closed. This would be the left-hand side, basically where it almost intersects with Percival. It's coming from that and up to past that second property below it. And those property owners have no objection. And our staff that we've run it through via our ordinance, so that would be emergency services, planning, not sure who else, can't remember, but we've already run it through them. They don't have an objection. So right now we just need to see what council is wanting to do.
Let me look for hands raised here. Ms. Newton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two questions, and one, they might both be able to be addressed by legal. So one question is, when we say that the residents don't have any objections, how do we know what was the outreach process? Is it, for example, standard when you want to close a road that you reach out to all of the residents in that area? And then the second question, I don't know if anyone can address it all, is apart from that, was anything additional ever done by council in terms of getting additional feedback? And that's just for my information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't know, is this a question for legal or other staff? Would other staff like to speak up on this one?
I can, if you don't mind, I can speak to the, a little bit to, speaking to the residents around there. So per state law, if you're going to close a road, you have to actually notice the persons that have properties on that road. And typically speaking, that's who the road would be deeded to. Somebody's got to actually own it and take care of it after a certain point. So I know that that happened. I don't know about other surrounding neighbors. I do have, if we want to get him on this call, Mr. Rip Sanders, if you're interested in talking to him, the attorney can answer any questions. He's available this evening. And Lauren Hogan from our office is the one dealing with this. She's on the call. I don't know if she has anything to add, but I know that at least the requirements of state law have been met.
Okay. So are you, as just a follow-up, are you saying that Mr. Sanders is sort of standing by and available to join?
He is. He's watching on YouTube, and I told him we could either maybe dial him in, send him a Zoom invite if we needed to speak to him.
Okay.
If you'd like that to happen, give me a couple minutes and I can get him on.
Okay. Ms. Newton, were you finished with your questions?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. And I'll just ask, are there any objections to having Mr. Sanders join the call from council?
Not at all.
Okay.
No. Mr.
Hearing no-
Malinowski is
Okay.
raising his hand, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Malinowski?
You're muted, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Before that gentleman joins the call, I had a couple questions, and I don't know if staff would know these right now or not, but who currently owns the road that's going to, and let me just ask all the questions and then they can answer how they feel is best. I'd like to know who owns the road now. Is there any monetary value to that particular property that is designated as a road? And the way it looks on this map, obviously, if that road is closed, it would make that parcel be able to join another larger parcel quite easily. And so does the value of abutting parcels increase once this road property becomes part of someone else's? And having the answers to all of those questions, I believe that Richland County then needs to determine if it is feasible to come up with a fair market value that would include an increased value in abutting parcels and possibly request some type of financial remuneration for closing that road if the county is actually the owner of it. Those are my questions.
Mr. Malinowski. So, Ms. Horatio, do you mind if I?
Please
respond?
do join right in, jump right in.
So the road, I believe, is well, first off, the part they're trying to close is a county road. According to, I believe, our records, we have not, it's not an abandoned road per se, but we've not maintained this road in some time. So we have no interest in the road, according to our staff, as far as I know. If Public Works is here and wants to jump in, please, stop me anytime. But I'm not aware that we have any interest in the road. Typically speaking, any citizen can petition a court to close a road. And this does not involve monetary values, as far as I know. I've never seen a court give anyone any kind of compensation in this sense. We're not trying to, this is not us trying to close it. This is them. They want to take it off our hands. Generally, that would save us money. And I can't speak to the property values, but if there's anything I could, perhaps we can get Mr. Sanders. Oh, you wanted to know who? I think let's see, the petitioner is the one who owned the other part of the road already. So I believe they're the ones trying to close the road again, this portion.
Well, it seems to me, Ms. McLean, that under any circumstances, any piece of property has value to it. And if the county owns this, I would think that value could be determined based on a square footage. I mean, if we're talking $300-400, fine. But if we're talking $5,000-10,000, maybe we need to determine if we should ask for something in return for closing it, if somebody wants to purchase it, rather than just give it away. I may have 50 acres and I got 2 acres I'm not using up on the backside, but I'm not necessarily just going to give them to the neighbor so they can have them. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'll pause here. I heard no objections to having Mr. Sanders join us. Ms. McLean, do you want to go ahead and let him know?
He's already on the call.
Okay.
He just joined. So if you have some questions for him, he is here. I see that you're muted, Mr. Sanders, so make sure you unmute yourself if you want to speak. And so he's here and available.
Okay, I actually do see that Ms. English has her hand up first, so I'll recognize Ms. English, and then I think we can address Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Councilwoman Horatio. I guess mine kind of piggybacks off of Councilman Malinowski. I'm just curious, when the county owns a road, and I guess this is just from my understanding, on my property, I had to give right of way, and then the county now maintains that road. So if that portion is closed, I guess that's what I'm asking is, has it been a right of way and now it's going back to the owners, or does the county own that road outright? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Lauren or Mr. Sanders, you know the answer to that right second. I'm other than saying it's a county-owned road, I'm not sure I know whether this is via prescriptive easement or some sort of dedication on a parcel. I'm not positive.
Okay.
Public Works, if they're here, they may be able to speak to that.
I could speak to that.
Okay.
This is really, sometimes public right-of-ways are formed as the councilwoman describes, where she's had a property and she's basically given an easement for public right-of-way to the county over a portion of her land. And a lot of times, and I think is such the case with this road, the subject road is Old Percival Road. And so people will give a public right-of-way to the county in this instance to put a road down a boundary, and they'll effectively have out to the median of the road and into their property, but there'll be a public right-of-way over that's created the road. And that's how that property that the councilwoman just spoke of in her own personal instance. And that's likely how this Old Percival Road was created. We'd have to do a title search that would go back beyond 60 years to probably determine that. And that's where you'll typically see is there'll be the underlying fee simple ownership, and the property will be owned by the property owner that's next to it halfway into the road, and then the other half will be owned by the person across the street. And the way that works in this particular instance, regardless of who owns the underlying fee, which could possibly be determined by more extensive title search, by what happens when the county closes the road, and what will happen here is the order by the master in equity, who is the judge who will in the lawsuit make a final determination closing the road. He will order it by his order. He will deed half of the property to or half of the road to the median line to that property owner that runs contiguous to that portion of the road, and then the other half to that person across the road. That's what we plan here. And what this is, for a little background, this is where Old Percival was probably before the Fort Jackson was made or was created, and the new Percival Road, where it exists now, runs down the boundary of that. This existing part, it runs to Spears Creek Church Road, or it did, and then it ran on an angle, and it kind of terminated where the World of Clothing Boulevard is, that entrance, and that's a public right of way off of Percival that goes up to the World of Clothing store. And this property terminates at that end on the western boundary, and at Spears Creek Church Road, in its old form, and that's where it terminated. We have already closed from Spears Creek Church Road about 1,000 or 1,500, 1,200 feet down this road heading west. We've already closed that. So this road now only exists as a public right of way from a point if you turned onto it theoretically, because you can't turn on it. It's actually a scrub oak forest. There's no discernible road there. It's now a forest, and it just is a forest area behind property for 2 residents that live on Percival. And then the property is 36 acres between Percival Road and I-20 is owned by Spears Creek Quadrant Partners, who I'm representing now on the road closure this time. So we're going to close it. We're going to deed half of it to the property owners along Percival Road that share this roadway on the back of their property. They get half of it. Then Spears Creek Partners, Quadrant Partners, gets the other half of it on that other side. And then at the end of it, you'll see there's kind of a pizza slice there at the termination and the curb cut for that road servicing World of Clothing and Percival. That is also owned by Spears Creek Quadrant Partners. But again, this road hasn't been used for more than decades. It has 20-year-old forest growth at least all over it. A part of it has already been approved and closed, and that was closed with no consideration or no fee. Typically, it's my understanding from road closures is that the county doesn't take compensation for the closure of a road such as this. I don't know that we could determine until we did a title search that the county could make a claim that they own the fee underneath their right of way. It's my assumption that it probably likely they do not own the underlying fee, and that it was a kind of a public easement that was granted or dedicated to the county to maintain Old Percival Road.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
You are welcome.
Thank you. I'm looking for hands. I see Miss Barron has her hand up. Miss Barron, you're recognized.
Thank you, Ms. Horatio. I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Sanders, just to clarify. When you say we've already closed a portion of the road, who's the we? Is that the Spears Creek group that you're speaking of, or is it we as in Richland County?
I'm sorry, that's a good question. So the we in that case is at that portion of the road, there was the Furniture Services Incorporated and the Sanders Group. And one reason why I say we is because the Sanders Group, that first property on Spears Creek and Percival that also has this road as one of its boundaries, that is the Sanders Group. And and we petitioned to have the road closed, and per the statute, we notify all the landowners around it. They have an opportunity, and then there's a whole statute and a process where we publish it in the state and then in a newspaper for 3 weeks, send them notice by certified mail. And so at that point, that road was closed and deeded half to the Sanders Group because it was contiguous to that portion, and half to Spears Creek Quadrant. And a portion of that, actually, the first 500 feet, when you turn off of it from Spears Creek Church Road onto it, the first 500 was actually state DOT maintained, and it was initially constructed as part of the Interstate I-20 construction project. And so it was a part of that, and it was a 66-foot wide right-of-way for about 500 or 600 feet as it started. Then it dropped down and became county maintained 25-foot wide right-of-way for that remainder, which is about 1,600 feet until it hits the World of Clothing Drive. But we was the other property owners, and all these property owners were notified at that time. I actually represented that road closure, and at that time, Mrs. Dial, who's the largest property owner on Percival that this road is behind, she was of course fine with it at that time. And then there was another owner between the Sanders Group property and her, and they were fine with it. Since then, we've done all the statutory steps to notify them again that we're going to close this portion, and that we intend to deed, or that the court order will deed half of that to them. And it doesn't require any action on their part to take. They don't have to. The court order will say of it. And as a matter of fact, even if the court order was silent, which it won't be, state law would grant their ownership of half of that as well.
Ms. Horatio, may I have a follow-up question?
Please go ahead.
And Mr. Sanders, I heard a common name there. So just out of curiosity, the Sanders Group and yourself, do you have any interest in that Sanders Group?
Yes, ma'am. That's my dad's business. And so I do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. I don't see any other hands up, and I do want to bring the time to my colleagues' attention since administration and, the A&F committee will follow this at 6 o'clock, and we do have one more item for action. Given all of the information on this item, the questions that we've had answered, is anyone prepared to make a motion on this item?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Newton.
I apologize. I have one quick question that would help me make a motion, and certainly I'd be interested in hearing from my colleague, Ms. English. But my question is, if we as a committee voted to approve this item and forwarded it to council for consideration, would council, is this the kind of thing that would be simply approved with one motion at council, or does it require multiple readings?
That is a good question. Could staff or legal help us know if this is a single reading item or if it requires 3 readings?
It will be a single reading item.
Okay.
But basically, we're just deciding how we would answer a lawsuit when it comes into single reading.
Okay.
Okay. So this does not affect my area. Certainly, I want to make sure that the public is had a chance to respond, and it sounds like they have. Considering that this item has been before us for 2 years, I would move that we forward it to council, but that if there's any additional information or questions that we have, that we work to gather that information before it comes from full council, at which point we could take another action. So I move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Ms. Only, will you call the roll?
You,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The last item for action is 5D, mutual easement agreement between Washington and Assembly LLC and Richland County, South Carolina, impacting the Richland Library branch located on Assembly Street, Columbia, South Carolina. Information is on pages 118 through 149 of our packet.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Newton.
I move to approve this item, and if it's seconded, we could have any discussion at that time and might be more efficient.
Thank you. As the other library liaison with you, I will second that motion to approve.
And I'm jealous because I wanted to motion to approve. But
Okay.
I can withdraw my motion, Ms. English.
You're good. You're good.
Good. It sounds like we have a lot of support here. Are there any questions or any questions from colleagues?
No questions, but I can speak to this being a part of the library board for the past 5 years. This is something that is really beneficial. It doesn't cost us anything, if you can believe that or not. So, woohoo! This is the first time the county gets something for free. So, I think it's a good project and it's great for the library.
Great, thank you. Sounds like a win-win.
Mr. Horatio, Bill Malinowski.
Oh yes, sorry, Mr. Malinowski, I didn't see you.
That's fine, thank you. Real quickly, the last line of page 120 of this agenda, it says the easement will be executed and held in trust and recorded only if the developer closes on the sale of the underlying property. So all this could be done, and if the property never sells, the library doesn't seem to get the easement then. Is there anything that can be done to change that, Ms. McLean? And you don't have to answer now, but I'd like to have the answer by the time it gets to council. If we go through, if we grant all these agreements, it seems like the library should benefit immediately.
I can speak to it briefly. It actually is set up, and the library is okay with this, that nothing will happen unless this developer actually goes through the sale. So we would execute this agreement. We would execute an escrow agreement, which would hold the documents until the sale was final, and the developer proved they had bought the property, and then everything would go forward. And I'd have to let the library speak to, the agreement they've entered into and why, and the reasons for that. But I don't think that's a problem with the library.
Okay, would there be any additional legal liability for the library or the county during any time that a sale does not go through and therefore an easement is not executed?
Not that I'm aware of. Basically, we're just kind of on hold. Nothing's happening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
You're
ma'am.
welcome.
It was my understanding through meetings with the library that we would just maintain status quo. So we would just stay as we are, as Ms. McLean said. Okay, any further discussion on this matter? I don't see any other hands raised. So with no further discussion, I'll ask Ms. Olney to call the roll for item 5D.
Hugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The last items on our agenda are items pending analysis, no action required. Item 6A is a motion to evaluate affordable housing options to include the option of establishing an affordable housing trust fund for Richland County as a benefit to the public. I won't read necessarily the rest of that. I know that we don't have a formal update, but I'll just ask if there's any informal update from staff.
Ms. Horatio, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Myers.
Hi. Good evening, members of the committee. Staff did include all of its updates in those pages to let you know where staff is currently with those particular items. Did you need additional information from staff so staff knew what to provide in the future?
I don't think so. Just wanted to see if you had anything you wanted to add.
Okay.
Thank you. And then item 6B, a motion to direct the county attorney to work with the county administrator to research and draft an absentee landlord ordinance. I won't read the whole thing there. And again, I'll just give folks an opportunity to, if there's anything additional they would like to add on that item.
I just have a very quick question, Madam Horatio. May I be recognized?
Yes, Ms. Newton.
So my understanding from this document is that legal is now reviewing and making recommendations. I just wanted to know if legal could provide the time frame for when they will be providing those recommendations.
I'm not really positive that's accurate. What I think is going on, and staff can correct me, is sometime back, and I sent a draft easement to you, Ms. Newton, and Ashley Powell, and then that was forwarded, and that was a new draft trying to address the issues that you, Ms. Newton, had made about the original draft that we provided, which took out most of the building code stuff, or all of the building code stuff, actually. And so as far as I know, staff is now working and commenting. I know that Mr. Maloney, there was a call about it the other day. Mr. Maloney, the Sheriff's Department, administration, legal, we're all on it. And I know that there are still mainly operational concerns that staff is trying to address and speak to, I think, before they send back a recommendation to council. If you'd like to have, the draft hasn't changed much since the last time I sent it to you, but I'd be glad to send it to you so you know what we're looking at. But I know that there were a few departments that wanted to talk about operationally how this would work.
Thank you. Ms. Newton, does that complete your question?
Yes, I think I want to be respectful of our time.
Sure.
I guess I spoke with, I think Ms. Powell this afternoon, so that wasn't my interpretation. My interpretation was that what you described, Ms. McLean, absolutely happened, and that the work groups convened and that they sent some documentation to legal for review. So I just, if, happy to get an answer offline, because it could be that I'm erring in my understanding. So just want to know where the next step is.
Absolutely. We'll make sure you get that.
And I'll just make the request, since this was a motion sponsored by a council member who's not no longer on council. Perhaps the previously circulated ordinance could be shared with particularly new council members, so that they can kind of get a feeling for where we're coming from.
Sure.
Yes,
And if I may, Ms. Horatio, the motion as written is actually the motion that I wrote, and Ms. Dickerson joined on. So while she is no longer here, I do count myself as a maker of the motion who is still here, and I'm also happy to speak to the intent of that in the appropriate format.
Great. Thank you. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's kind of gets caught up. I know how it is to jump right into the middle of things. So
Ms. Horatio, I would like to have that. I would like to have the request that you just made of staff. I would like to see the ordinance as it's written now, and then have the opportunity to circle back with Ms. Newton should I have any questions.
Thank you. I think, it would be helpful, and even for me to see it again too. Okay, that concludes our meeting. It's 5:58. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Second. It's moved and seconded. Ms. Only, will you call the roll for adjournment?
You,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yeah.
Motion passes.
Thank you all for sticking with us. I will see you in a minute.